Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we will build a React admin panel for a CMS-like application. We will learn how to consume REST API and build CRUD functionality using refined capabilities, which is a React-based framework. We will also use the end design components along with refine to design our admin panel. Let me show you the demo that we are going to build in this video. So this is the application that we are going to build. This is an admin panel. We are going to use the RESTful APIs. So we have the entity as post and we are going to build the CRUD functionality on the post. So this is the list of the post. We have all the post and then we have the pagination at the bottom. We can go to the second page, third page. We can also change the number of post view per page. So you can select 20, 50. Okay, I'm going to keep it at 10 and we are going to have the actions here. So if I want to view this post, so what I will do is I'm going to click on this view, then I can see an individual post, and on this I can edit the post, I can delete it and refresh it. So if I click on the post, I will go back on the post. And now if I want to edit the post, so let me edit the post and I'm going to change a new post edited, and then I will keep everything as it is. I'm going to click on save and you will see that the post is now saved. Then we are going to have the delete. So if I'm going to click on the delete, then it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to delete it? And then we can click on the delete. So the post is deleted. We can also delete the post. If we go on a view, then we have a delete button where we can delete the post and we go back here. We can also do it in the edit. So there also we have the delete button. If we click on the delete, then we are going to delete the post. And then if we want to create a new post, I can have the new post created. I can have the status as publish, and then I can have the category as the first one, this bullet none, and then I'm going to click on save. All right, so now we have saved it and we can apply the filter as well. So I want to have all my posts based on this, then we should be able to see all the posts related to this, and I'm going to click filter. Then you will see that we have all the posts related to this. So if I go to next, and this is the new post which we have created. This is a very beautiful application. It's also a responsive. So if I go and inspect, then we should be able to see a responsive design in the mobile. All right, so this is going to be a very interesting tutorial and we will be able to learn a lot of things, how we fetch the data from the API and we display it on our screen. So if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Alright guys, so before we jump into the Visual Studio Code and start building our CRUD admin panel, I want to quickly give you an overview on the Refine, which is a React-based framework for rapid development of web application. Refine eliminates repetitive tasks that we use for the CRUD operation and provides us some ready-made solutions like authentication, access control, routing, networking, state management, and internationalization. Now, Refine is a headless by design and it offers unlimited options for customization. With headless, what I mean is that Refine is a collection of hooks, components, and providers, and they all are decoupled from the UI component and business logic. And Refine also have some ready-made integrations for Ant Design System, Material UI, Mantine, and Chakra UI. Let's take a look on some of the use cases of the Refine. So Refine is very useful when we build the data-intensive applications like admin panels, dashboard, internal tools. And here are some of the key features of using the Refine. So we can build the application with a single CLI command, and it provides 15 plus backend services, SSR support, state management, advanced routing, authentication, and access control, and there's a long list of features that Refine offers. So we are going to make use of a Superplate-cli, which will give us a boilerplate code for our front-end application. So we will be using npx Superplate-cli. So if I go to the Visual Studio Code, so let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and in the terminal, I'm going to have the npx Superplate-cli, then I'm going to have the -o refine and design, and then I'm going to give the project name. So I will have the Refine admin panel, and I'm going to hit enter. So this is going to give us a complete project, and what we are asked is need to install the Superplate-cli. I'm going to click yes. All right, I'm going to hit enter, and then it's going to install all the packages. So let's wait for some time. All right, so now it's installed completely, now we can see, and we can scroll up and we can see that it has cloned the remote repository from the GitHub. And then we see that we have a project name as Refine Admin Panel. We are using a UI framework, which is an Ent design. We are using a React Router version 6. We are not using any internationalization support, no authentication logic. And then we have the boilerplate code. All right, now if I go and open it, so if I go here, I'm going to open the folder. So I'm going to go to my documents, I'm going to go to codes, and then I have the Refine Admin Panel. So I have it. Let's go to the package.json and let's verify what dependencies it has already installed. So if I go to package.json, we see that we have a pan code refine core API. So then we have the just React user events. Then we also have the refine simple rest, which is used to call the REST endpoints. Then we have the refine ent design, and we have the refine React Router version 6. And if we go to our app.tsx, then we have some default boilerplate code. Now we are going to run this application. So what I will do is I'm going to go to the terminal, and then I'm going to have the npm run dev, and this is going to start my application. So we see that our application is now running on localhost 3000. So this is the refine homepage. So this is the boilerplate code. We already have it, and now we are going to make modification on this boilerplate code. So let's first understand what we have in our app.tsx. So if I'm going to minimize this, and if we see, then we have a refine from the refine code. So this refine is a refine component, which is we are getting it from the refine code. Before we go into the details, I want to give you some overview on the refine code. So a refine code is a collection of providers, hooks, and components. So this is the refined code, and it is a collection of providers. There are some providers like access control provider, auth provider, data provider. This is the one which we are going to use in order to make the REST API calls. Then we also have the live provider, router provider, which is going to be React Router DOM version 6. Then it contains some hooks which are very useful while fetching the data. So we are going to make use of a table hook and resource hook. We are also going to use the show hook. So I'm going to show you how we use it while building the admin panel, and we are going to have the components. So we will use the refine component. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code, then you will see that we have the refine, and we are making use of a refine component. And this refine component has some prop. So data provider is one of the prop. Then we have the router provider, which is going to have the React Router DOM version 6. So we are installing this router provider, and we are also installing the data provider. Next is we are going to have some components from the Ent design, and that will be the error component, ready page, layout, and notification provider. So these are all coming from the refine Ent design. So in this tutorial, we are going to use the Ent design for building our UI, and this refine Ent D is just the extended version of the refine core packages with Ent design features. Now with refine, I mean the data provider and the router provider. Let's go and let's check the pages. So if I go to the data provider, then you will see that this is the data provider, and it has a variety of data providers. So it has more than 15 plus data providers like Simple REST API. This is the one which we are going to use in our project. Then you can also integrate with GraphQL, Nest.js, Airtable, Strapi GraphQL, and many more. Then for the React Router DOM, we are having the router provider, and with the refine, you can use any of the router provider. Like the one which we are using is the React Router v6, but you can also use the version 5, React Location, Next.js router, and Remix router. And the next thing I want to show you is that we are going to make use of a fake REST API, which is provided by the refine, and this is the API that we are going to use. So if I'm going to copy this and let's go and let's check in the browser, then it's going to have the collection of data. So there are a couple of resources. We are going to use the resources for the post and categories. So if I click on the post, then we are going to have the /post, and we see that there's a lot of data in the post. So we are going to make use of this API, and if we go in our Visual Studio Code, then we are using the data provider, and we are going to use the refine simple REST data provider. All right, so now the first thing what we are going to do is we are going to add a resource. So we are going to use the post as a resource. So before using the resource, I want to give you an overview of the resource and how we can use it as a prop in the refine. So this is the resources prop that we can use, and with the resource prop, I mean it is always the endpoint that we are going to use. use. So we are going to make use of a post. So what we need is we are going to name the resource as post. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and let's add the resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the resources as a prop, and this prop will have an object, and then we can pass the array. So we can have the multiple resources. So for us, we are going to have a resource as post. So let me have the post, and then you can define this resource anything which you have in your API endpoint. So you have multiple resources here. If you have categories, you can name the resource as categories, and this resource actually represents the entity in the endpoint. So our case, the entity is the post, and it actually acts as a bridge between the data from the API and the pages that we have in our app, and it also allows the interaction with the data. So now in our case, we are going to have an app that is going to consume the post endpoint, and then we are going to have the resource like list of the pages. We are going to have the create, edit, update, and delete, and the page components are interacting with the CRUD API operations. We pass as a resource element to the resource. So now we have enough understanding about the resources. Let's go and let's build the application. So now I will save it, and if we go and see our application, then something is changed in our application. We don't see the home page anymore, and we see a route which is undefined, and we have a 404. So the first thing we need to do is we need to list down all the posts. So for that, what we will do is first we are going to create some interfaces. So I'm going to create an interface here. So let me have the interfaces, and then inside that I'm going to create a new file which will be index.d.ts, and then I'm going to simply add the interfaces. So what I will do is I'm going to do a copy and paste of the interfaces. So we're going to have two interfaces. The first one will be the post, which will contain the ID, title, status, and will have the category. So category is going to have the ID, and then we are going to have the created date. And for the categories, we are going to have a different interface which will have the ID and then a title, corresponding title to it. And then what we will do is I'm going to create the pages here. So let me have the pages, and inside the pages I'm going to create the different pages. So the first one will be the list.tsx. Then I'm going to have the create.tsx. All right, then the next one will be show.tsx, which will be to show the individual post. Then I'm going to have the edit.tsx. all right, and then after that I'm going to have the index.tsx. So let me have the index.tsx, and now this index.tsx is going to have the export of all the 4 pages. And then now let's go to the list.tsx, and inside the list.tsx what I will do is I'm going to have the export constant post list. So this is going to have the post list. All right, this will going to be a react function component, and then we are going to have the arrow function, and this will be react. And then let's return some simple div. So I'm going to have a div, and I will save it. All right, so now we have created the post list. Similarly, I'm going to have a boilerplate code in each of the pages. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to the show post, and I'm going to change this to post show. I will save it. Then I'm going to go to the edit, and in the edit I'm going to have the post edit. So let me add it, and then I'm going to have the post edit. I will go to the create, and then I'm going to have the post create. All right, so now I have created all the 4 pages, and now next thing what we need to do is I'm going to close all this, and we are only going to work on the list.tsx. So I also have the index.tsx, and here what I will do is I'm going to create a tsx file. So in the pages, what I will do is first I'm going to create a new folder which will be the posts. Then I'm going to move all this to post. So I'm going to drag it, I'm going to move, and then what I will do is I'm going to create a simple index.tsx file. So let me have the index.tsx. So we have the index.tsx, and in this index.tsx what I will do is I'm going to have a export asterisk from /post, and now we can use this post in our app.tsx. So if I go to the app.tsx, so let me go to the app.tsx, and in the app.tsx what I will do is I'm going to import everything. So before importing, what I will do is I'm just going to use it here. So the next thing I want to is I want to have a list. So I'm going to use the list, and I will have the post.list. I'm going to explain you what this list is and post.list is. Then we are going to have the show. So I'm going to have the post show. Then I'm going to have the create. So let me have the create, and I'm going to have the post create, and then I'm going to have the edit. So that will post.edit. dot edit. I will save it. So now we have added the list show, create and edit with each of the components that we have created. So now if we go here, then we see that we have the post here and we also have the post as route. Now we need to do the listing of the post. So if we go to the list component, and in the list component, what we need is we are going to also import the interface for the post. So this is the interface for the post we have created. And then what we are going to do is we are going to make an API call, and then we are going to fetch all the data. So for that, what we will do is we are going to make use of a use table hook, and that is going to give me the table props, and this is going to equals to the use table. All right, and we are going to have the post as interface, and then I'm going to have it. All right, so now we have used the table prop here, and this table prop will help us to fetch the data from the endpoint. All right, and then I'm going to add the JSX for the returns. So I'm going to add the JSX, and here what we need to do is if we see, let's import all the components that we are using. So what I will do is I'm going to import all the components. All right, so now we have imported all the components that we are going to use, and if we go and see that we have a use table and we pass the interface as the post. So now this interface and with this use table, it is going to fetch the data from the API, and then it wraps into a helper function and provide it to the table, which is going to allow us to have functionalities like sorting, filtering and pagination that will be available instantly on this table. So we get the data here, we pass the data into the table, we pass a row key as a ID, which is a unique for each of the row. Then we have a table column for the title, we have the table column for the status, which is going to have the value as our interface shows, like published, draft and rejected. And then we are going to have the table column as created, and it's going to have the value which will be in the form of a data field. Now if we go and if we check it, then if we refresh our page, then we see that we have all the data listed that is coming from the API, which is the this post API. So we have all this data in the form of a table. We also have the pagination, and we also see that we have a create button. Now if we go back here and if we see that how we got the create button, so it is because of the list component that we are using. So this list component is basically a wrapper on the table which provides additional features like create button and the title. So now we have got the list, but now we will also need to have the categories for each of the posts. So for that, what we will do is we are going to see that how we can handle the relationship. So each of the posts is going to have a category ID. So if we go here, we see that each of the posts is going to have a category ID, and then based on this ID we need to fetch the title of the category. So for that, we are going to have the handling relationships using refine. So let's go back. So if we go and see the categories, so if I go and see the categories, then we see that on category on the 40 we have the category as this one. So we need to display each of the category title that belongs to the post. So for that, let's go and check how we can handle the relationships. So if I go back here, and then here we can make use of a hook, which is the use many. So first let's create the interface for the category, which we already have it, and then what we need to do is we are going to have a additional column in the post which will be category, and we are going to have the ID which will be as numbers. Now if I go back to the list.tsx, what we need is we need to have the categories. So I'm going to paste a code snippet here. So here what I will do is I'm going to have the categories. I need to import the use many hook. So this use many hook will be coming from the refined core, which is contain all the hooks. So I'm going to have the use many, I have it, and then let's have the interface as well. So I'm going to have the category interface. Now what we are doing here is that first we are going to create a constant of the category IDs, and we are going to have all the IDs that are in the post. So I'm going to have my data in the table props. Then if the data is present, so this is a conditional check. If it's available and not null, then we are going to have a data source. We map all the data source, and then we get all the IDs in an array. So once we have all the IDs in the array, we are going to pass those IDs to the use many hook, which is going to handle the data in the form of a category. So now this use many is going to handle the relationship between the ID and the titles, and it's going to have the data as a categories data. So it's going to have the ID, then the corresponding is going to have the title of the category. So let me show you the documentation of the use many hook. So this is the use many hook, which is a modified version of a React query query use query and is used to retrieve multiple items from the resources. In our case, the resource is the category, and we need to make use of all the IDs of the category and then get all the data. And it also uses the get many method as a query function from the data provider, which is passed to the refine. So here you will see that a simple example of categories which has the ID and the title, and then when you use the use many, then with this use many you pass the resources that you want to query the categories, and then you pass the IDs. So when you pass 1 and 2, it's going to give you back the title and the virtual invoice Avon. Now let's go back and we will see that we have the categories here, we have the category IDs, and then once we have it, we need to display them in the table. So let's go to the table, and then we are going to add a additional column which is going to have the categories. So I'm going to copy the code snippet. Now you will see that we have the data index, we have the category, and we have the ID, we have the title as category, and then we list down all the categories. So if we go back to the application, if we click on it, then we see that now we have all the categories. So this was how we handle the relationship for the ID and to get the title. Now the next thing what I want to do is we need to add the filter option so that we can have the search and the filter option on the categories. So if we go back here, then what we will do is we are going to add few more components. One will be the filter down, then we are going to have the select, and then we are going to use the use select. So this is going to allow us to have the functionality for filter and sorting. And then what we want is we need to apply this on the categories. So I'm going to have the select props, and I want to select it on the category selected prop. So let me have the category select props. All right, and then we are going to have the use select hook. So let me have the use select, and then we are going to pass the categories because we are going to have it on the categories, and then we will have the resources, and our resources will be categories. So let me have the categories. I will save it. And now since we have declared the select prop of type category select prop, but we have never used it, so what we are going to do is we are going to use it in the end. So I'm going to copy a code snippet, and what we will do is we have the table. All right, we have this table column of the categories, and here we are going to pass a prop which will be the filter drop down. Now if we go back, then we see that we have a select drop does not exist on the use select return type I category. So let's go and fix that. So I have misspelled, so it should be a capital P. All right, I will save it. And now we see that if I click on it, then we see that we have a select category and we have the filter for drop down. So if I selecting this, then I can have a filter. All right, and then all the post will be filtered with this. So this is how we added the search and the filter. All right, so now we have the complete list of the posts, but there are a couple of points which I want to mention here. And the first one is the list. So there are basic components like list, edit, create. So if I go and show you, then we have a list, which is simply a layout that displays, and it's a wrapper which is going to provide us some additional features. Similarly, we have the edit, we have the create, and we have the show. And then we also make use of the use table. So this use table is help us to fetch the data from the API and then provide the data for filter state and pagination states. Then we are making use of a use many hook, which will allow us to fetch all the category titles from the resource categories based on the ID. And this query option allows us to make unnecessary calls for the categories which are already retrieved. And if we want to fetch only a single record, then in that case we can use the use one. All right, so the next thing what we need to do is we need to display each individual post so that whenever we click on the post, we see a post page. So for that, we already have the show.tsx, and let's go and let's work on this show.tsx. So what I will do is if we go to our application and if we click on it, then currently we don't have any of the action column where we can have the action for viewing the post. All right, so now let's first import the interface and the typography so that we can design our show post page. All right, I have the typography, and then what we need to do is we need to import the typography. So now we have the typography, and we are also making use of a use one and the use show. So in the past we have used the use many to get the relation between the IDs and the titles, but this use one is going to fetch the data only for a particular ID which we are going to pass. So let me add the code snippet so that I can walk you through the code snippet. So I'm going to copy the code snippet here. Now I'm going to just add it here. All right, I will save it. And now we can go through it. All right, so now what we are going to do is now we have the use show, and this use show hook is going to fetch a single record from the data, and the query result has the response and a loading state. So now we are going to fetch a single record based on the ID. All right, once we have the data, we have the record, and then we just display the record based on the title, status. For the category, we have the use one hook, and what this use one hook will do is it's going to return us the category type of data. So for that, we are going to have the resources, and then for the ID, we already have the record, and inside the record we have the category ID. Once we have the category ID, we are going to pass it, and then we are going to fetch the title of that category, and then we can display the category data. So this is the category data that we are going to display. Now let's go and let's check it. So right now we don't have any way to go to a single post. So what we will do is in the list post, we are going to add an additional column so that will contain all the actions. So I'm going to go to the list, and here in the list, I'm going to add an additional column. So this will be an additional column, and let's import the show button. So I'm going to have the show button. All right, I will save it. And now you'll see that we have a icon here, and when we click on the icon, we get an individual post. So here we can see that we have the additional button of post, edit, and refresh, and that is because we are using a show component which is providing us the additional buttons. So next thing we need to do is we need to build an edit post. So if we go to the edit post, and then first we will also add the edit button in the actions. So what I will do is I'm going to go here, and I'm going to have the edit button, and let me add the edit button here. So I'm going to copy this. All right, and then I'm going to add it, and I'm going to change this to edit button. All right, I will save it. All right, and then I will also need to add a space component. So what I will do is I'm going to have the space component. All right, so I will just wrap it into the space. So let me have the space, and I'm going to wrap the buttons component into the space. All right, I will save it. Okay, now if we go here, we see that we have the edit, and when we click on it, then we see that we have the edit, and we also have the ID. So now let's go and write the edit component. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go to the edit. Okay, and then in the edit, I will have the imports first. So let me import the interface, and let me import some components. And here I'm going to add the code snippet for the edit. So now let me add the code snippet here. All right, I will save it. And now if we go through this code snippet, what we will see is we are going to have the forms prop, save button prop, and the query result from the use form. So this use form hook for the post, it helps us to manage the form, and it is a component of the end design that provides us the props for managing the forms action. Then we have the use select, which will help us to select the category, and then we have the edit component, which is going to provide us a wrapper to our form and will also give us some additional buttons. Then we have the form for the title, we have the status, and then we have a category, which is also a select option. So now if we go and if we see, then if I go back, if I click on the edit, then we see that we have an edit button, we have a use select here so that we can select any of the option, and then we have the category. We can also click on the save, and that is going to save. So all this component and the functionality is coming from the built-in ready-made refined components. So the next thing we need to do is now we have the edit functionality done. The next thing will be is to create the new post. So if we go back to our Visual Studio Code, then we have the create post. So the create post will be very similar to the edit post. So I'm going to add the imports. So let me add the imports here. All right, I will save it, and then I will also add the code snippet that will be used to create the post. So it's not going to be a different than the edit, it will be a very similar. So let me add it, and let's go to the code snippet. And now here we use the use form to manage the forms. We have the use select for categories, and then we have simple form. We have a create component which is going to add us the additional buttons, and then we have the save functionality. So now if we go and if we test it, then let me go and let me refresh it. Now we see that we have a create, we also see a title. So let me add a new post. I'm going to select the status as published, and I'm going to have the est built none. All right, I'm going to save it, and then we see that the post is created. Now, if I want to see that post, what I will do is I will first add the filter, and then I'm going to filter the results. And if we go to the next page, then I see that I have a new post which I have just created. Now, the next is the delete. So we have already done the list, create and edit. Now, the only thing we need to do is the delete post. So we can do delete in a couple of ways. So right now, first we will going to add the delete button in the post list itself. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go to the list post, and here I'm going to add the delete button. So let me have the delete button. I will go down and I'm going to add the delete button here. So I'm going to copy and then I'm going to add it. So let me add the delete button. I will save it. And let's go and check. Now you see that we have a delete button, and it gives us a pop-up that are you sure you want to delete it? And if we click on delete, the post will get deleted. So we can delete the multiple posts. The next way we can delete is if I click on the view, then I will also need a delete button here. So for that, what we can do is we can actually make use of a prop in our resources. So if I go to our app.tsx, and here we have the resource post resources. So what I can do is I can add a prop as can delete. All right, and then I can have a true. So it's going to add the delete button on the post edit. So now if I go back and then if I click on edit, then you will see that it has a delete here. If I go to the view, then we see that we have a delete here. So this is how you can add it with the help of a can delete as true. All right, so now we have built the complete CRUD functionality, and we also have the admin panel. Now let's go and let's see it. So we have the list. So this is a post list component, and then we also have the pagination. We also have the post per page. Then we have the action items, and we have the filter option on the categories. So we can select and then we can have the filter. Also, then we have the action items to view the post. We have the delete. We can go back to the post. We can delete it. Then we can create a new post, and that's how you can manage all the post from this admin panel. So this was an interesting tutorial. We are using the Refined, which is a React based framework, and we also use the end design components to build the UI. I know that I haven't written any code here, but I have given you a walkthrough of the code snippet that I have added. That's all I have in this video. I hope you liked the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest updates, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. Thank you. Thanks for watching.